Hi everyone, welcome back to Advanced Java. So we've taken a look at the build XML and how it bundles up our war file and copies that out to Tomcat and where things end up. But what really is that web application? And we've got a short lecture and some screenshots here, some directories to look at in the lecture, Creating a Java Web App. And the thing to keep in mind, even though it seems like this really complex thing, a Java web application is really just a directory with directories inside of it and then some files. So that directory that we're using is the Java 112 directory, and that gets bundled up into our war file, right? So you can think of that as just a zip file, gets copied to Tomcat, and it gets expanded back out for use. What's inside of there? So right at the root, we've got our JSPs, and then we also have images, and we could have subdirectories in here if we wanted to keep our images our JSPs more organized. We could start creating directories and organizing those JSPs, or even organizing our CSS into a different directory, organizing our JavaScript into a different directory. So just because these JSPs are right at the root of our web app directory, Java 112, we could make subdirectories to organize ourselves. So that is kind of demonstrated with the images directory here, where we've got all of our images. A couple more JSPs, static HTML can live in there as well. Then in there we'll have a meta-inf directory. We'll have other configuration files in there down the road. Normally at this point in the game, meta-inf isn't going to be very important to us. Sometimes there's just some details about the application that could reside in that manifest file. But again, we'll talk about that in a future semester. More JSPs, and then that webinf directory. And the webinf directory is where things like our property files are going to end up going, and our compiled code like our servlets. Okay, so remember that our JSPs turn into servlets. That happens in another directory out on Tomcat, so that's not a part that we actually build and deploy. So here I'm talking about the actual application being built, bundled, and then sent up to Tomcat. So the parts that I have to put together, or we put together as part of the build XML, then all the JSPs, any images or related files like CSS or JavaScript, a manifest file in a meta-inf, which we don't have to worry about this semester, and then our web-inf, which has our Java classes. So right now, those are our servlets. You would also have in here things like any interfaces that you use, so we'll see our utility classes going into there. And in the fourth unit, where we build even more classes that our servlets rely on and use, we'll see additional package structures within here. But the big takeaway is that inside of webinf and classes is where your servlets and supporting classes will go. In the lib directory, that is where we'll have any jar files that your application needs. So sometimes we use libraries that were built by somebody else, and those files get bundled into a jar, a Java archive file, and so we'll see those in the lib directory. That's where that stuff gets bundled up. So the stuff that we've written will be in classes, the stuff that somebody else has written that we're using will be in the lib directory. And then finally, there's a WebXML file. The WebXML file has configuration information about our application. Tomcat uses this file, or whatever application server you're using, reads into that file and uses the information from there for things like, what is our homepage for our application? We've specified that by default in the WebXML as just index.jsp, so that's taken care of for us. We'll look at, in an upcoming video, some other things that we can do in there, which is mapping. So we can create some friendly mapping names for our JSPs, just like we do for the servlets, but that for the JSPs we need to do in the WebXML. So that is coming up. So the takeaway here is that the Java 112 directory is indeed our web application. We just need to follow a particular structure for that. And of course, how do we access it? We access it at localhost :8080, so that's our server and our port, and then the web archive name without the war file, so that's Java 112. That comes from this directory being bundled up, so that's kind of how that name defaults. Ant deploy, or simply the ant target, will bundle all of that stuff up out of our project into the proper structure, which we see here, compress it, copy it to Tomcat where it's extracted, again, into this same format. So Tomcat and web application servers are depending on this particular format in order for the web application to actually work. All right, that's it for now. I'll be back to talk more about the WebXML in an upcoming video. We'll see you then.